so we're just going to dive right into it. So we've gathered today to find convergence, but also how do you converge, right? Because we talked about trust, and I asked you a question, and it was very pinpointed, and we asked, what is the formula for trust? I know that there are 4 pillars that you believe in about, but let's just get your perspective on what trust is.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for having me, and thanks for the really, really warm welcome. Lacey took it from I'm sorry if I'll try to keep this at the right distance, from convergence to collaboration. She mentioned the word collaboration, and I think when you and I were talking, Nate, it's how do we deconstruct collaboration? How do we deconstruct what it means to achieve more in a group than the best individual in that group? Because that's really what collaboration is. If you have one amazing performer and then 20 people around them, and the aggregate is only achieving the effect of that amazing performer, then the measure of collaboration is not that material. So I think my contention is trust. Trust is the most important ingredient of collaboration. You can't collaborate without someone with someone you don't trust. And sorry to sound a bit academic about this, but I do believe, thanks to a lot of research, that trust is now really well understood. And it's amazing to me that it is well understood, but we don't deconstruct it. So trust has 4 ingredients, in my humble opinion. 2 are really obvious, and 2 are a little less obvious. So all of you are already probably thinking of number 1 and 2. Number 1 is credibility. You can't trust someone who's not credible. If I'm constantly telling you something or predicting something and I'm constantly wrong, it's pretty hard to trust me. I think that's a straightforward. The second one is reliability. If I tell you I'm going to get something done by a certain time and I consistently miss my commitment, you're not going to trust me. So do we agree? Credibility, reliability, pretty straightforward. We all agree with that, ingredients of trust. The next 2 are the ones that I really think are the heart of it because we don't think about them. The first is the third, I should say, self-orientation, or the lack thereof. We can't trust someone who's about themselves and not about the group. We've all worked on teams where you can tell this person cares more about themselves than they do about us as a team, about us as a group. I certainly can't trust that person, and I certainly can't collaborate with that person. So self-orientation is one that's a little less obvious. I want someone who's a group-oriented person. And then finally, and this is the one that I think is always missed, because I think with credibility, reliability, and lack of self-orientation, you can have pretty good collaboration, pretty good trust. But you can't achieve that A level of trust without intimacy, which is what things like today can achieve. Intimacy is about knowing each other at a deep level, at a vulnerable level. Like, what motivates us? What are we insecure about? What do we really want out of life and out of our mission? And I think today, especially with the transitions that have happened between employee and employer, in terms of how we work, I think intimacy is so much harder to achieve. Intimacy is so much harder to achieve with someone you've never met. They might be the smartest, credible person, the most hardworking, reliable person, and they might be self-oriented, but I can't know them at an intimate level. So I sincerely believe in these 4 ingredients, and humbly, whenever I have in my career been challenged with a coworker or someone who works on my team, I always ask myself, which of the 4 are we missing? Which of the 4 are causing me not to be able to trust that I can collaborate with them on my team? And intimacy is a very common one if you're a busy entrepreneur, because we don't get to know everybody at an intimate level. We're too busy. We think resume, credibility, reliability, they're doing their job, I'm good. And then we can't deal with the difficult situations because we don't have that intimacy. So sorry about that long diatribe, but that's sort of the quick summary of trust and collaboration.
Let's create a scenario. So for those of you out there that are managing 1 to 10, raise your hand. Okay, Management of 1 to 10. Okay. 10 to 40. 10 to 40. Okay. This gentleman here. So let's create a scenario where you've got something that you've got a mountaintop you've got to achieve, but how do we get buy-in, right? And then how do you immediately develop that trust with each individual that's a part of the organization?
That's a good question, and one I wasn't prepared for, so this is an ad hoc answer. I think to achieve hard things, obviously you need collaboration. I think we've all heard the now famous expression that we can get much further together, I should say. We can go farther together than we can alone. We need collaboration. So how do we achieve hard things, climb a hard mountain? We already talked about creating trust with the team. The second ingredient that I would say is a clarity around what mountain we're climbing and what peak we're trying to achieve and when. And I dare say that, I've actually never thought of myself as an entrepreneur, even though my last couple of chapters have been very entrepreneurial. I've always thought of myself as the boring operations guy who can execute, who can lay out the plan and be the boring behind the scenes sort of person. And for that, I'll give you 3 ingredients, and I think they'll be obvious to most, but I'll go for it. We need a common goal, a common definition of goals. And I will tell you that go into any organization that has more than 15 people and ask them what their number 1 goal for this year is. And I dare say that in the vast majority of cases, you're not going to get a unifying answer. You'll get, out of 15 people, you'll get 6 or 7 goals. So number 1, can I communicate clearly enough what that common goal for our team is? The second is a common cadence. How are we going to, when are we going to meet? When are we going to evaluate? When are we going to review and optimize? So from, whether it's annual down to quarterly to monthly to weekly to daily, something I'm a big fan of is your top 2. I think some of you, how many people here use top 2s in their organization? Joel, just Joel? So top 2s are a really, really great mechanism to sort of say, we're going to go there this year. And what are the top 2 things we have to accomplish this year to get there? We deconstruct those top 2 into what are the top 2 this quarter, what are the top 2 this month, what are the top 2 this week, and what are the top 2 today. So sincerely, every week, I will be honest and tell you I don't do it every day, but every week on Monday morning, I wake up early with my cup of coffee and I think to myself, what are my top 2 this week? What are the 2 things the week cannot end without my achieving? I've got everything else that always happen, the meetings and all the junk, but what are the top 2 things I have to achieve this week? So we have common goals, common cadence, and finally, a common dashboard. How are we going to measure? So we figured out collaboration. We now need to align. How are we going to measure our progress to make sure that we're heading towards our goals? So what are the KPIs? What is the common dashboard? And, we all read these things in business books, and we all can talk about them, but so rarely do we actually achieve them. So rarely can we all, even as a leadership team, sit together and say, what are our 3 KPIs that are more important than everything else?
Let's talk about real case scenarios where you've got some confusion going on, in the boardroom. And if you've got people that are creating dissension amongst an organization, which actually removes collaborative thought, can you explain to me maybe 2 or 3 ways that you've been able to address individuals who have created problems, but yet you're able to align and then still optimize?
I like that question, Nate. If I were to look at an organization, and again, hopefully you guys can all tell that I'm a boring operations guy. I come up with 2s, 3s, and 4s for everything. You can sort of I classify my team into 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 we'll call the stars, and I actually mean a metaphor of space, like the stars. The amazing people who bring light, optimism, happiness, energy into a team. They're really, 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 really rare people. These people are the ones that you can never lose. They're the person who walks into a room and brings up the mood, up the energy, up the thought leadership. You know who they are, but they're rare. Most people are not that. Most people are what I'll call, for this metaphor, planets. They'll circle the stars. And alone, they don't get much done, but they're great people. But if I can add enough stars, they circle the stars, and now we can get some progress. What you're talking about, to keep the metaphor going, I'll call a black hole. So there are an equal number of black holes that you cannot afford in your solar system. You cannot afford even one black hole, because they take the planets. They may not take the stars, but they'll take the planets. And the planets will start to circle the black hole and eventually fall into the black hole, as opposed to circling the stars. So the question then becomes, are black holes, is that a systemic problem? Are people black holes? And I understand that that isn't the case. People are not just absolutely good or bad. There are ingredients to that, and because I've been talking a bit now, I don't want to deconstruct that right now, but I'll tell you that there are a few ingredients I believe in, having to do with, are they happy, are they humble, are they hungry, do they have horsepower? I refer to them as the 4 H's, happy, humble, hungry, horsepower. And if you're missing one of these, I might work with you. If you're unhappy, but you're humble and hungry and have horsepower, have capacity, I'll work with you. If you're missing one of the 4 ingredients, I'll work with you. In my humble opinion, over 30 years of working in the business world, I have never, ever in my life fixed a relationship where someone is missing 2. If you're not happy and you're not humble, it's just not worth working with it. I'd much rather cut that portion out, cut that black hole out, and go spend time on the rest of the team, because if I waste too much of my time on the black holes, I'm ignoring the planets, I'm ignoring the stars. So, hey, thank you.
She is preach. Oh, that is good. How are we doing in the back? We doing good in the back? Yeah? Okay, that's good insight. Did you know he went to school, he was in college at 14? Is that what it is? 14? Yeah, I forgot to mention that right when he came up here, so just want to make sure you guys understand what's happening here. So that's why we're constructing everything.
Being a nerd is not something you promote.
Yeah, leave it to me to help promote that. So we're just talking about collaboration, team, leadership. When was there a moment in time in your life where you had to level up your leadership, and what did that look like? Because we have people in here that are leaders within their own respective right? So we've got to address those individuals who are wanting to take the next level, the next step, because their life is pushing them in that direction. Their family needs them, because everybody needs you for something. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how you were able to level up that leadership, because you came from an analog, like, hey, let's create this, let's structure that, to then you had to get into interpersonal communications.
I appreciate that, Nate. And, let me build on the additional model I just discussed, the 4 H's, happy, humble, hungry, horsepower. I realized that using that model to judge, I know judge has become a 4-letter word. It's a 5-letter word, but it's become a 4-letter word, but to judge my team. And I thought it would only be fair to judge myself using the same metrics as I judge my team. But if I'm judging myself, I add a 5th, and that's healthy. So happy, humble, hungry, horsepower. And if there are any English majors or humanities folks in here, I'm sorry that it's a noun and not an adjective. Some of you may get the joke. And then healthy. So sincerely, when I'm down, when I'm struggling, performance-wise, not mental health-wise, performance-wise, I ask myself, which of these ingredients, if I had a boss, how would I self-judge? How would I assess myself? Am I going into a room and building up the room just like I want stars to build up the room? Or do I walk into the room and have everybody sort of dejected. I need to be happy. I need to be polite, respectful, treat everyone as an equal. Am I humble? Am I listening to my team? Something that entrepreneurs struggle with a lot, because we're entrepreneurs because we're pretty good at what we do. Or if we're not, we're serial entrepreneurs. It's a bad joke. No one laughed. You know, every morning when I leave and I'm about to speak, my wife always tells me, "Good luck, honey, you're going to do great. Just please don't try to be funny." It doesn't work. And sure enough, it doesn't work. So am I being humble? Am I listening to my team? Are there areas I'm missing? And it's amazing. I do help entrepreneurs these days, and it's amazing to me how frequently we are blindsided by things that the rest of the team sees, and we are just so preoccupied. So am I humble enough to depend on my team and listen? Hunger is not typically an issue entrepreneurs struggle with. We wake up early, we're always working, we're always stressed, right? If anything, we're a little too hungry, which impacts the fifth H, the healthy. I founded and ran a company for about 9 years, Atlas RTX. I'm on sabbatical now. I just left the company 2 months ago, the first time in my life I've ever left a company I started. And a major ingredient for why I did it was my physical and mental health. I gained 5 pounds a year for 9 years, and I could sense that I was always anxious, I was always stressed, I was never really there. I'd be sitting with my team trying to build intimacy, but I was only 30% there. 70% was trying to tell myself, don't look at your phone, and the other the other leftover of that 70% is thinking about the next meeting. And I realized that I sincerely was always spending all of my moments preparing for the next moment. I was always here, stressed about my next appointment. And then I'd get to that appointment and stress about the next appointment.
How many of you can relate to that? Yeah, look at that. You're speaking.
It's brutal. It's brutal. So I can't model these H's for my team if I'm not living them myself. And sincerely, I started struggling with more than one of the H's. And I reminded myself that I part ways with someone who's struggling with more than one, then I need to part ways. It was easily the toughest decision. These people are my family. I mean, it's a sincere. Those of you who are founders know that we're made fun of a lot when we talk about a work family, because that's, no one is your family. But there is this special bond we have with the people we hire, the people who believe in us. And this has to work not just for me. They left their jobs. They told their spouses, their families, they were going to join a startup. I have to make this work. These people believed in me. They're my family, my work family. And arguably, I think it's a better definition of family because I got to pick that family. We don't get to pick. We don't have to like everybody in our family, but I get to love the people I bring in. So it's such an emotionally difficult thing to go through for all of us as entrepreneurs, but I sincerely believe we have to judge ourselves around these 5 H's, and we have to ask those who care and love us, care about and love us, are we happy with you? Are we humble? Are we healthy?
Well, if you're not a part of an accountability group, or there's one thing I remember actually when I read the Think and Grow Rich. You guys, anybody read that? Think and Grow Rich? There's actually a 26 introspective chart in essence that will help you look at yourself from a very objective point of view. And I think looking at yourself from an objective point of view based on the course correction that you're going to have through your introspection is extremely valuable. And that's exactly what you're saying right now is make sure to have that time of introspection. And I believe as we're in a busy culture today, so busy, that we forget who we are. We don't even know who we are or where we're going. And that's why today's specific time that we've set aside was called Convergence, to make sure that we're realigning. Not to say that any of you out there aren't on your path of whatever you define success is, but it was just a matter of making sure that we can slow down. And that's why I love doing these Breakfast Paloozas, because it slows you guys down long enough to have that introspection, to connect with other people that will hold you accountable to the goals that you proclaim. Because if we don't proclaim a goal, then we're never going to get to the goal, and then we're not going to have anyone to the left and to the right of us making sure that we achieve it.
I completely agree. Thanks for that context, yeah.
Well, hey, I just want to say once again, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.